But first, as the government ties itself in knots trying to justify doling out thousands of visas to people coming from Gaza, yesterday Greg Sheridan put this into context as he catalogued Labor's national security ineptitude on a broader scale. Like the litany of defence reviews we've now had with no tangible outcomes, this is a government, said Sheridan, that likes to, quote, hide behind bureaucracy to avoid hard political decisions. Joining me now to discuss this, foreign editor at The Australian, Greg Sheridan. Greg, as always, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. They say this is all standard process, that it's been done before, but we've never given visas out like this type of visa, in this number with 1 or 2 hours worth of checking for people coming out of a terror-controlled zone. What's worse, I have to say, is the lack of candour in all of this. I mean, we only know about it because Penny Wong was pressed on it last year in a press conference, and I wonder if the journalist from the ABC hadn't picked it up, would we even know this was happening?
Yeah, Peter, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this has turned out to be a shocking government on national security, both in substance and in process. It's given us nothing on defence. The Defence Force is much weaker than it was when they took office. We lost our last 2 commercial international cargo ships, so we've got no supply chain security whatsoever. And this whole visa imbroglio is just indecipherable and bizarre. So we've given out many more visas than any other Five Eyes country. Now, one caveat I'd like to make, any Palestinian who has come here under rules set by the Australian government is welcome. They're our friend. They're here now. They didn't do anything wrong. They came under the rules. God bless them. But we're entitled to have a discussion about the future. Now, if the government decided that it was going to take a disproportionately large number of people from Gaza compared to any other country that we like to compare ourselves to, and we were going to bizarrely take them under visitor visas, sometimes issued in 1 hour, which cannot possibly mean proper checks, it should have made this decision public, taken the nation into its confidence and explained what it was doing, instead of which all of the information has had to be drawn out of it like extracting teeth from a reluctant kid at a patient in a dentist surgery, and then it's complained about us making any inquiries or having any concerns about it.
And allowing the accusations to fly that somehow you're a racist for raising what I think are legitimate security concerns. I have to go to those comments, and you raised them in your article, from Mike Burgess, where he says that basically if you're a supporter of Hamas, so not necessarily a terror actor, but if you're a supporter of Hamas, as far as he's concerned, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. Now, come on. We would have tried to deport someone in the past if they said they support Al-Qaeda, if they said they supported Islamic State. How the heck are we changing our view on this?
Yeah, Peter, this is an indecipherable comment, and the government has to explain it. The government has to explain it. The responsible Minister for ASIO is the Attorney General, so Mark Dreyfus has to tell us what level of support for Hamas is acceptable for the government. I've got Mike Burgess's transcript here. Now, I've often said on this program and in print, I have the greatest admiration for Mike Burgess. He's led ASIO effectively. He's a tireless public servant. He's a dedicated upholder of national security. I can only think that he misspoke. However, this misspeaking can't be allowed to stand. So Spears asks him if people have expressed any support or sympathy for Hamas, is that a problem? He doesn't give a straightforward answer. Spears asks a follow-up question, but if it's just rhetorical support, according to the transcript, Burgess says it's just rhetorical support and they don't have an ideology or support for a violent extremism as an ideology, then that's not a problem. Rhetorical support for Hamas is not a problem. At the core of Hamas's identity, its rhetoric, its global vision, its outlook is profound, vicious, hateful anti-Semitism. Burgess's comments have distressed the Jewish community. They are utterly confusing. People right across the political spectrum have no idea what he means. Former senior Labor cabinet minister like Stephen Conroy calls it out as a clear mistake. And now the government is running and hiding. Now, Burgess, as ASIO Director General, is not really in a position to issue a clarification of his own profoundly confusing statement. But the Attorney General or the Prime Minister simply have to do this. They have to say either the DG of ASIO misspoke, or when we said rhetorical support, we meant nothing more than, you know, calling for a Palestinian homeland or something like that. But they've got to give us some guidance on it. Now, there is no statement in our history.
I just want to jump in there, though. The other option in all of this could be that he was reflecting government policy. I mean, has he been in the room with the Prime Minister or ministers who say, look, you know, Mike, we don't expect, if there's just rhetorical support for Hamas, that should knock someone out? I mean, is he expressing there with David Spears what he believes government policy is? Is that why they're not addressing this head on?
Well, that's possible, but if that's the case, they've got to tell us that too. If they have that as a government policy, they've got to tell us. As far as I'm aware, and I'd love anybody to show me that this is wrong, in the entire history of Australia, there has never been a statement from a government minister or a senior government official saying rhetorical support for a terrorist outfit, so long as you don't have the ideology of violent extremism, is okay for someone seeking to come to Australia on a visa which will mean permanent residency. That doesn't mean they're a terrorist, of course, but it means they support the world view of that terrorist organisation. That's what it means definitionally. Rhetorical support for Hamas must mean rhetorical support for the Hamas view of the world. Now, you know, if that is the government's policy, I don't believe it would be, and I don't think if that was a government's policy, I think a smart public servant would simply avoid answering the question because you'd leave it up to the government to answer it. One lesson out of all this is it's stupid to get apolitical officials to do political interviews on chat shows. They have to be very precise with their language. They can't make mistakes like this. By believing that this is a mistake by Burgess, I'm giving the charitable interpretation because I just cannot believe that Australia has a policy which is that rhetorical support for a terrorist organisation, so rhetorical support for Al-Qaeda or rhetorical support for Islamic State or even rhetorical support for the Ku Klux Klan shouldn't be a deal breaker if you're seeking a visa to come to Australia. I just can't believe that that is the case. And the government is leaving ASIO out to dry, damaging ASIO's reputation every single day, and also causing concern amongst Australian citizens, and also leading to a most unfortunate and no doubt baseless inference that perhaps some people who've come here are Hamas supporters, because it won't clarify this. And the government has to own this decision and tell us what its policy is.
All right, just quickly, we'll go to Chicago, Democratic Convention, Day 2. Michelle Obama, former President Barack Obama, both took the stage. Give us your sense. I mean, the former president went very hard on Donald Trump. His wife sort of sold us in Kamala Harris and her backstory. Give us your sense of how this is panning out for the Democrats.
Look, I think it's a pretty good conference for the Democrats. They're running it very professionally. They're very united. You know, all their former presidents are there. The Republicans can't get George W. Bush in the same room with Donald Trump, or Mike Pence, his vice president when he was in office. It's quite a dishonest conference because they're pretending that Joe Biden's record doesn't exist. Kamala Harris is going to run against inflation, whereas Joe Biden caused the inflation. She's going to fix the border, whereas Joe Biden caused the border problem, and she was part of that administration. Obama is so infinitely superior a performer to Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. That was a masterful performance by him today. Somewhat dishonest because, for example, the crowd went to boo Trump and he said, "Don't boo." Now, that's a good thing. He's a very courtly gentleman, and that's a good thing. But, of course, the Democrats are not playing by the rules. They've weaponised political prosecutions against Trump. They've, really subverted the American political system for the American legal system for political ends. They play just as hardball as Trump, but they're presenting themselves as more civil. And I think it's been reasonably effective. Probably too many Liberals, but on the other hand, they dialed Hollywood down a bit. They had a little bit more mention of God. and a few denunciations of anti-Semitism. I think actually it helps them to have a few anti-Israel demonstrators outside. You know, it used to help Bob Hawke to have left-wing demonstrators that he was against. I think Kamala Harris is going to be a terrible president if she is elected. She'll be the most left-wing president probably in American history. But I think this convention has been well managed, and Obama is just so much better at this sort of rhetoric than anyone else on the American stage today. The Republicans are lucky they're not running against Obama, and if they can't beat the likes of Kamala Harris, that says a lot about them.
2 days to go, Greg. We'll see what happens before then. Anything could happen. It's a bit wild and crazy over there at the moment. Thank you for your time.